Come back to the channel. I'll be talking on how to draft this beautiful corset.
Set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draft a basic corset body, like a normal bodice. All right. So my full length I'm working with is 22 inches. That is full length I'm working with. So this is my start point, which I'm going to label as my shoulder line, X shoulder. Then I'm going to mark my. I'm going to be inputting my shoulder measurements, which I have 15, which is 7.5. So this is my shoulder line. I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. All right. So from the 1 inch I marked, I'm going to come down by 7.5 inches. I'm going to mark my 7.5 inches, which is going to be my armhole measurements. So this is my armhole from here to here. Then this line is going to serve as my chest line. So this is serving as my chest line. This is my shoulder line, and this is a shoulder slope. So the next thing I'll be marking now is my bust points. So I'm going to place it back to my shoulder. My bust point is at 10. So this is my bust point. Then my under bust is 13 inches. So I'm going to make a rule across. This is my under bust measurement. So I'm going to use this marker. I'm marking with a pencil first, then. So this is my, I'm going to label it. This is my chest line, CL. This is my bust point, BP. And this is my under bust, UB. Then the next thing I'm going to be marking is my waist measurement. So I'm placing my tape back at the shoulder line. I'm going to mark 16. My waist is at 16 inches. So this is my waistline, and this is the full length of my top. All right. So now the next thing we're going to be working on is the neck area. So the width of my neck is 3 inches, and the depth is, I'm working with 3 as a basic distance. I'm going to call it. So this is what I have. Then I'm going to connect from this is my neck now. I'm going to connect to my shoulder slope. So this is my shoulder slope. Then for my neck, for my armhole. So for this I have here, I'm going to divide it into two to get the center of it. So this is me dividing it, my 7.5, and this is the center of it. All right. So I'm going to place my tape back to this point. And I'm going to mark half an inch inward from here. I'm going to mark half an inch to create my shoulder slope, to create my armhole curve. Sorry. I'm going to curve this into my armhole. All right. So this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do now is we have a nipple to nipple points measurements. So I'm working with 4 inches nipple to nipple. I'm going to mark it starting from the center. I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple. I'm going to mark it down to the full length of my top. All right. I'm going to connect it with a rule, connecting the points and marks together. All right, so the next thing I'm going to be marking now is my dart intake. So coming to this dart line, I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of the leg, on both sides of my dart leg. This is my 1 inch. Then coming to this point, I'm going to mark my 1.25 inches. This is for my dart intake. Sorry, this is on the waistline. I'm also marking 1 inch, 1 inch. All right. Then coming to my under bust, I'm going to be marking 1.25 my dart intake. I'm going to connect the dots together. So this is me marking it with a pencil first. After which I'll now mark with my marker. So this is what I have. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be making my using my curve to connect this to my nipple point, to my bust point. Alright, so this is me connecting it to my bust point. I'm also going to turn to this other side and connect it to my bust point. Alright. Now the next thing I'm going to place my tape back to my start point, which is also serving as our shoulder X. Alright. So now it depends on how open you want it to be, like how much cleavage you want to review, how you want it to start. You can decide to place it at 6, you can decide to place it at 7. It depends on you how much you want to review. So I'm working with 6.5 inches. So that's how much I want to review at 6.5. Though you can decide to bring it more down, the choice is totally on you. So this is my 6.5 inches. Then I'm going to place my tape here on that the place I marks my 6.5, and I'm going to be, remember our dart is 4 inches, that's our nipple to nipple is 4 inches, so I'll be adding extra one to my 4, making it 5. So if you, it depends on how many you have, you add extra one to it. This is where my 5 lies, and I'm going to connect using my marker and rule. I'm going to connect it to my bust points. So this is me connecting it to my bust points. Then I'm going to be marking 0.75 inches on both sides of the dart leg. So this is my 0.75 on both sides. Then I'm going to connect it back to my nipple points. This is just to tighten my over bust. I'm just using it to tighten my over bust. That's what I'm doing there. So now the next thing I'm going to do now is I want this to have a sweetheart neck. Alright, it's going to have a sweetheart neck. So I'm going to place my tape back to my shoulder line and mark how deep I want my cleavage to be. So I'm working with, from my chest line, I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch down. So this is what I have. So when I place it back, I'll be having 9 inches. So the depth of my cleavage is going to be at 9 inches, 1/2 inch below my chest line. Then I'm going to use my curve to connect it from this point now. I don't know if you can see it very well. From this point to this, I've connected it back. Then the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch on, that's the center of my dress. I'm going to be marking on 1/2 inch. This is to hold it, to enable my cup, to attach the cup, this part now. So I'm marking my 1/2 inch. Sorry, this thing is not working very well. So this is what I have. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to also be using my curve to make this inward. Alright, so I'm curving this inside. So this is one part of our cup is ready. One part of our cup is ready, which is this side. So the next thing we're going to be working on is this side of the cup. Alright. So first thing first I'm going to do is I'm going to be marking my bust measurement. So my bust measurement is 8.5 inches. So I'm marking my 8.5 inches here. Alright. Then I'm going to measure what I have here. How many inches I have here? I have 3/4 inch. I'm going to mark it. Then I'm going to add extra 1 inch for my joining allowance because of this I have here, so I'm marking it here. Then I'm going to come to my waistline. My waist is 7 inches. I'm going to be marking my waist measurement, which is 7. Then I'm going to measure what I have here. So I have 2.5 inches. I'm going to be replacing it back plus 1 inch seam allowance, making it 3.5. All right. Okay. So this is my under bust. This is where I'm meant to place that my waist measurements. So I have 7 inches. Please discard what I did here is wrong. I thought this is my waist. So this 7 inches my waist. I'm going to mark what I have here. I have 2 1/4 inch plus 1 inch seam allowance. Alright. So now I'm going to be joining them. Alright, so this is what I have. Alright, so I place my tape back. This is my 8.5 where my bust measurement is. So the where your bust measurement is, what I'm going to do is just to come down by 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to make a row. So this is where I'm going to be connecting my cup to. All right, so this is my cup now. From this point now, it's going to come down to this point. So I'm going to be making use of my cup view. So from this point, sorry, I'm going to connect it to here. All right, I don't know if you're seeing it properly, so I connected it from this to this. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be using this part, connect it back to this point. So this is what my cup looks like. So now the next thing to do is to add your extra seam allowance to it. Like we have already added the allowances we removed here. So what you're going to be adding is your actual seam allowance. You understand? So the next thing I'm doing now is I'm going to cut this out. But before then, I have to label. This is my cup 1, this is my cup 2, this is my center front, and this is my side front. So what we'll be doing now is to cut this. Alright, so watch closely what I'm going to cut. I'm actually working on off shoulder top, so I will not make use of the upper part of this. So this is what I'm working with. So now I'm going to cut this out. So this is one part of the cup. Then I'll be cutting this other part of the cup. So this is what it looks like. Alright, so So this is what we have. This is the cup. But now we need a basque for it. So we're working on the basque. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to attach a basque to it. So I want to increase the length of my basque. So what do I do now? I'm going to be adding extra 3 to 4 inches. So I'm working with 3 inches. You can decide to work with 4 inches. The choice depends on you, but I think 3 is okay. So I'm going to mark this my 3 inches. I'm going to mark it across. Then I'm going to be using a tape to hold this down. Coming. I'm using a tape to hold this down. Alright. Then coming to this point where my bust is going to stop, I'm going to be marking 2 inches. That's how wide I want it to be here. Alright. Then I'm going to connect it to my waist measurements. From here, I'm going to connect it to my waist measurements. My rule is not that lengthy, so I'm going to be drawing with a straight rule first, after which I will now curve it. You can decide to do it freehand. Choice is all yours. So I want mine to be curved, so that's why I'm retracing this. So this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting this off. Then I'm going to be cutting this off. So this is what my front piece is going to look like. All right, so I'll be using this to cut out my back piece. Okay, so let's cut the back. So at this point I made some points, so I decided to go back and retrace it. All right, so if you watch the video, I started the curve from the waistline, which is odd. All right, so I decided to go back to it. So what I'm going to do now is from my waistline I'm going to be coming down by 2 to 3 inches. The choice is totally yours on how you want to come down. So all right, so I'll be coming down to 3 inches. Okay, then I'll be working with my curve. Remember, from the full length I came down by 3 inches. All right, then the width of my basket is 2 inches. Then I'm going to connect it now. I'm going to be using this curve to connect it together. So this is my new basket. So this is what I have now. So this is what I will be having. This is what my basket is going to look like. So this is for our front piece. Okay, then I'll be cutting this off. And this one just be cutting it off because I'm not needing anything. So this is our new basket. This is what we'll be using to work. So for my back piece now, what I did was to place my front on top of a paper. All right, then this is where my basket is. So I marked a rule. I ruled a straight line on it. Let me redraw it. So that's where my back is going to be stopping, where my basket started. All right. Then we also need this start point that is here. We need it. Then this area, this is what we need. And this is what we need. Please remember to add your extra seam allowance before cutting on your fabric. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is to roll my line out. Okay. So this is what I have, and I'm going to be cutting it off. So this is my back, and this is my front. Okay. This is my front, and this is my back. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to be marking. It depends on you if you want to have loops at the back or if you want to put a zip. So if you want to put a zip, you'll be adding your zipper allowance. But now I want you to have loops, so you can decide to work with 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches. It depends on how open and wide you want it to be. So I'm working with 2 inches open. So I'm marking my 2 inches across. Okay. Then I'm going to roll. So I'm cutting this off. This is where my loops is going to be. So this is going off entirely. This is where the loops will be. So I'm going to be marking that this is my up part and this is my down. So if I'm cutting, it's not going to be an issue for me. So remember to add your seam allowance while cutting on your fabrics. So I'm going to cut this off. So this is what my pattern looks like when I'm done.